Hey, Goddess. Welcome to this episode of the Hey Goddess podcast. And
Mm.
we are going to talk about resistance today, which is such an
Ooh.
amazing topic for both of us and for anyone that has a physical body, has emotions or thoughts, like
So
anyone. So
you
any
fit
human being
those criteria.
can benefit from this video. And this is my beautiful co-host, Wendy Lou. She is a writer, a published author, professional editor, an amazing copywriter. She's a Reiki Master, an all-around energy magician. She's a homeschool mom. And to find out more about Wendy and her awesome services, check out her website, and we'll drop the link below in the description box. And I'm Angie K, author of Creation Code's Rise of the Goddess, and my newest book coming out very soon. Well, depending on when you're on this podcast, it could be out. It's coming out May 2025. I'm a feminine embodiment and law of attraction coach, master sound activator. And to find out more about my services, you can check out my website in the description. We are going to talk about the physical body sometimes, and we are not medical professionals. We are not medical doctors. If you need, and we recommend that you do get things checked out. If you need to get something checked out, please go and see a professional. We're just going to share our personal experiences around energy and what can happen when energy is in resistance. That means energy is not flowing, energy is stuck, and this can have to do with your emotional body, your mental body, and your physical
Mhm.
body, and how they're all working together. And so we're speaking from the place of both being energy healers for a very long time. I started my first energy healing training when I was 29 years old, and Wendy, not long after that. I can't remember exactly when you did your
Oh, I was well into my
training.
40s, but yeah.
Okay, in your 40s. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay.
Perfect time. Yep. Yep. So we're going to talk about resistance today and how that can show up and why it's such a huge thing, especially in our line of work and energy healing and spiritual coaching and any type of coaching. A lot of the things that coaches help their clients with is moving through resistance. And I'll
Mhm.
just define that real quick and then why don't you give your definition? So my
Go for it.
definition of that is when you are moving into another level, another expression of who you are, there are certain ways that you're going to show up and certain things that you're going to be doing. Like, for example, if you are starting a new career or you desire to start a new career or a new line of work or something you need to study, then there might be resistance to that because that is a higher level of expression, something different that you've never done before. And so there might be little parts and pieces of yourself that can come up and try to talk you out of whatever it is that is in your highest and best in your next level. And so they can sort of like pop up as emotions like a terrible dreading fear or a terrible sadness or something that just feels like a stuck energy, and it can feel unrelated to what's going on. And that's why this is so great. That's why coaching is so great. That's why energy healing is great, because it emphasizes and brings attention to these things that are in our unconscious, the resistance that shows up in our unconscious. And these are things that we can actually address and move through when we have the support of, working with a coach or a healer, or even on our own. Of course, it's just easier when you have another person to reflect it back to you, because looking at our own stuff can be so challenging for us.
Right. And the ego
So,
comes in and we can't see it clearly. Sometimes we need that
yes.
perspective. Yeah.
And ego, yes, ego is the resistance, right? So
Right.
these are thoughts that are not serving you that might be telling you, well, remember that time when you were 10 and you tried to go to that thing and then it didn't work out or you got made fun of or whatever. And then this story starts running in the background forever, for years, and then you go to make a change in your life. You don't even realize you're operating from your 10-year-old self, right? You
Hmm.
think that that would be completely unrelated. But then, you know, you realize it's like, okay, I got to address the 10-year-old, and then we can move forward past whatever this is. But these things can show up in your physical body, like Wendy and I were just talking about. I'm sure she's going to share. They can show up in your emotions and they can show up in your thoughts. So that's kind of
Mhm.
my definition of resistance, the way I see it, and with myself and my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, all of that for sure. And just, one of the reasons Angie and I love doing this too is because we essentially will say the same things, but we have totally different perspectives, but we always end up in the same place. And so sometimes the different perspectives, I think, help whoever's watching, right? I feel like we each reach maybe different people and bring everybody into the same room, right, to have the conversation. And so I would preface my definition by saying it's interesting when you think about how change is the one thing that terrifies us, that we resist, and change is also the only thing in this life that we can count on. Everything is always changing and we're afraid of it, and we resist it. And we were talking about this before we hit record. It's been credited to Jim Carrey. I don't know who said it for sure. I hope it's Jim. We love Jim. But and I'm going to butcher it, but to paraphrase, he said, when you're experiencing emotions like depression, he was talking about depression specifically. He said depression is when you're tired of playing the role you've been playing. In other words, when you are resisting becoming a new person. And we become new people, I mean, let's be honest, sometimes every day, especially lately in the energy the last few years, we have been changing so fast. And that's going to bring all that sharp resistance. And so, yeah, for me, it's definitely, and for my clients, it's definitely, when you break it down, it's pretty much all we do is helping other people see where they're resisting, where they're putting things in their way to move forward. Because the thing is, and you're talking about the 10-year-old self, that's perfect too, because there's so much inner child discussion in our world, right? Like healing that inner child. We operate from the wounded child. And when we can heal that child, then we don't have the resistance. Because you think about kids, I think about my sister, my younger sister. I was 13 when she was born. And so we have a very close relationship. It's almost more like a really close, like aunt and niece, right? Because there's such an age difference. But I remember her as a child. We would go stay in a hotel, and if she'd see the pool, and she'd be 18 months old, 2 years old, and she would sprint fully clothed. So we couldn't stop her. Nobody could catch her. And she would sprint and jump right into the pool. No thinking, no fear. No doubt that
Wow.
what she was doing was exactly what she wanted to do. And she would jump into the pool in her clothes because she loved to swim so much. And so I feel like that energy really embodies like where we want to be in this life. Not, leaping before we look, but trusting that if it's something that's in our heart that we can just go. And so when we release the resistance, then we can live like that. And I will say too, don't expect to never ever ever have resistance and to heal everything fully in this life. It's just probably not going to happen. We have physical bodies for a reason to experience a lot of these things, right? And to work through them. And so, not to scare anybody, like, yes, we're going to heal. We're going to heal a lot of big stuff, but there's always going to be something that's going to come up, and we just get better at seeing it and better at releasing it, and then better at not resisting it the next time. And so but it all starts really, and we didn't even discuss this beforehand, but maybe this is a lot about healing that 10-year-old self or 5-year-old self or 2-year-old self or even, whatever age, whenever trauma occurred that kind of stripped you of feeling safe in the world and safe in your own body. That's where you go to heal. And Angie and I both do this in very different ways.
Absolutely.
So
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
don't know if that was a good definition or if I just rambled, but that was
It was
kind of where I was
amazing. Yeah, and I love what you said about how, we can be explaining the same thing in a completely different way, but talking
Yeah,
about the exact same thing. I love that. Yeah. I think that definition is perfect. Yeah, and
yeah,
I think I wanted you to share your story, and like how we even got on this topic was because
yeah,
of what you were experiencing last night. So I
yeah.
don't know,
And the
I
last
wanted you
couple
to speak
days,
to
really.
that with from the physical side of
Okay.
things.
Absolutely, yeah. So I, being on this journey for 12 years now, which is crazy, um, and actually almost 13, I've come to know, you get to know your body. You get to know your body really well. And so I know when my body's talking to me, yes, I will do, the practical things, right? I have been known to go to a doctor and seek out advice and things from that world. But I also always want to go in and go, okay, where is there an emotional core? And I just believe that there's always an emotional core to any discomfort, any dis-ease in the body. And so the last few weeks, actually, I was noticing a little bit of tightness and discomfort in my hand. And I don't want anybody to worry. I have sought out, expert advice, and I'm doing all the things, right? I'm in menopause. And so I'm taking my magnesium, I'm doing all the stuff, I promise. But at the same time, I go in and go, okay, why is my hand, right, like right here, my hand just kind of sore and stiff, and I'm very right-handed, and it's my right hand. And I had never known, and I'm assuming you learned this in hand analysis, or was it elsewhere? But this
That's
this
where it was.
finger
Yeah.
on the right hand, you had said just today, I never knew this, that it is showing me that I'm not stepping into my leadership in some way. And that's what is trying to be released from my body. That's why I want people to understand this too. When we have discomfort and dis-ease, it's not oh no, oh crap, something's wrong, I'm dying, whatever. It's more of okay, what is my body trying to release? What is my body shaking loose? What is my body trying to tell me right now that I'm resisting letting go of? And so I had to go back, and I realized we had Goddess Society last night, which is Angie's group that is amazing. We'll have the information for that linked below too. And in the breakout, I was talking to this beautiful intuitive gal, and that came up for me. I was military, and I am very natural at taking over. I can take over and have Capricorn Sun. I can step up in the leadership role in any room, typically. In that setting, however, they have processes in place that you have to follow. And they don't include compassion. They don't include any kind of heart-centeredness. And I was not allowed to lead in the way I wanted to lead. I was always told I was being too soft. I was always told I was too nice. I was always right. I was always told these things. And so after being told that so many times, I was in a program where I was kind of in uniform, and then I could take a break and in uniform over the course of a decade. Once you're told that for 10 years, I mean, even after like 4 or 5 years, I just stopped trying to lead at all. I was like, okay, I just kind of shut it down, because I was like, if you're not going to let me do it the way I need to do it, then I won't do it your way either. And then I would get in trouble for that, for not even, you're supposed to be, you're supposed to be leading. And I would do it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I would do it to a certain point and then be like, no, no, I'm not. Like, because I had resistance to, well, I had resistance to doing it a way that didn't feel aligned with me, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But ultimately, I had to leave that environment, because that was not going to change. The environment was not going to change. And I knew that I was not aligned with it. So when I left, I've never looked back. I've never regretted leaving. But that was almost 20 years ago. So not my child, but I was in my 20s. I guess, 30s. I was in my 30s. And that is coming back through for me to allow to flow through me and release, so that I can, because I'm in a stage now of my life where I'm working on actually two books at the same time right now, a fiction and a nonfiction, and I have these opportunities to step into leadership roles. And I just have been kind of in this purgatory space around it, and then that the military experience was coming through, and also being told, and I'm just going to put this out there, as far as the witch wound goes, also being a woman in a very male setting, and Angie understands this too, in the military, it's just like a corporation. It's the corporate world, essentially, just in, you have to wear the uniform. Being a woman and trying to lead offered a whole nother host of challenges, right? It was the snide comments, the remarks, the harassment, if there is anyone out there who doubts that that happens, I'm telling you, every woman I served with has PTSD on some level. Every single one.
Wow.
And including me. And I've worked for a long time to heal that. And so it is a very masculine environment where feminine leadership is not welcome. And so I
Yeah.
had to remove myself from that space. And now it's been almost 20 years, and now it's finally, working its way through me. Now that I have come to a place where I can really truly take charge of my own life. And so it feels good. So yeah, in a nutshell. So even just talking in Goddess Society last night to the gal in the breakout, who then was pulling cards for me and and tuning in for me, it feels a lot better today already.
Wow. See?
So it's like, okay, let's do this. Let's let it flow.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Mhm.
And I mean, I just want to emphasize one more time that anything that we're saying today is not meant to diagnose, cure, treat any diseases or illnesses. Please go
Right.
and receive medical advice. We're only saying from the energetic perspective what resistance can do within the body,
Right.
emotional body, and the mental body. So,
Yep.
yeah,
And even if you end
that,
up, even if you're taking medication or, whatever you need to do, try to go in and see what's going on with your body on the emotional level as well. If we can at least marry the two things, right? I think that
yeah,
we could make a lot of headway in healing the body.
absolutely. And I think, I mean, that's where energy healers and coaches and the like come in and work in tandem with these other things. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love what you shared too about your about the military experience because yeah, it was the same way for me in corporate, and I had so much trauma when I left. When I finally left corporate, I had so much trauma. And these pieces of resistance, I just want to speak to what you're saying that can come up. They don't have to be from your childhood at all. You're right. They could be any age. And I have processes, and I know you do too, that I do with my clients where we identify the pieces of resistance and then get them on board moving forward with the new intention, with whatever it is that the person is wanting to create now versus where they were, 10 years ago or whatever. And so it's like getting every aspect of yourself because there's all these like different aspects of you, right? And so it's getting them all moving in the same direction. We have all these different archetypes within ourselves and all these different ages of ourselves and experiences and yeah, so that how that trauma comes up, like you said, it's just a stuck emotion that is stuck with a belief and they're kind of like glued together. And until you process the emotion, you can't actually shift the belief. And even if you create a new belief, and this is where sometimes people are like, why is the law of attraction not working for me? Why is it not working for me? Well, it's like, yes, you can change your belief entirely, right? So say back in the day, you always believed this could let's just put this with relationships, right? You always
Mm.
believed because of certain experiences that you were going to get hurt or that, men or depending on whatever gender you are, that either men or women were a certain way or whatever, right? Then fast forward, say maybe 10 years into your life, and you want to have a different experience. Maybe you want a romantic relationship, you want something. And so you're like, you know what? I'm just going to change my belief around this, which is the first step. That's entirely
Mhm.
the first step. That's very powerful. And then you're like, no, you know what? I believe that men are good and want to love and support me. And maybe that is completely opposite what your belief has been for the last 10 years. Okay, yes, that is very powerful. That is making a complete 180 shift within you. And the next thing that's going to come up is any of those little traumas that are attached to emotion and
Right.
a belief stuck together.
Yeah.
So I know we've talked about this in other episodes, the emotions as they come up, but they
Hmm.
need to release because everything needs to move in the direction of your new belief because you are telling basically when we speak these beliefs, we're speaking to ourselves at the DNA level. We're speaking at the quantum level. And so your DNA is quantum. And so you're changing your DNA. So
Hmm.
you're basically in that moment, you're making a change, right? Except that these little pieces of yourself, your maybe your 30-year-old self is like, well, I went on that date that one time and it went like this, and then you had an emotion stuck to a belief. That emotion needs to release, and then the belief shifts to the new one, right? The
Right.
emotion holds it in place though. So that's where that when Wendy's talking about trauma, that's essentially, I mean, that's my definition of trauma. Other people might have other
Absolutely.
definitions. You could look up a professional, um, you know,
You'll probably
psychological
get a lot of,
definition, but I believe
right.
that's, and that comes from past lives too. So you can even have past lives, and I'm not saying that you need to worry about this because whatever's in your energy field will be reflected to you in this lifetime. You don't actually have to go diving into past lives to find these traumas.
Right.
They'll actually come up in your experience now. Now you can, and it is very, very powerful. And if you are drawn to that, then there is a reason for that. If you're not drawn to that, though, don't worry about it because those things will pop up for
Right.
processing in this lifetime. There'll be a similar experience that comes up in your reality, and then it'll create something that has you feel something. And in the feeling of that, you also release the feeling that's attached to a belief that's no longer serving you. So that's how you start to move through
Yeah,
resistance and get yourself on board. But being conscious of it is so much more powerful than, of course, everyone's going through this, whether they're conscious of it or not. But
right.
you're
That's the
kind of
thing.
being pulled along like, like you're in the stormy sea if you're not conscious of it. But if you can become conscious of the fact that resistance is a part of the journey and actually accepting that it's just part of it is so powerful too. Like I
Hmm.
loved the edits that you made in that part of my book when I was talking about resistance. And I was saying, like, this is kind of like the grist for the mill. Like this makes life juicy, right? Like if you just imagine if just every single thing that you thought of, you could just instantly have it. Like where would be the joy and fulfillment in, you
No,
know what
it
I
gets
mean?
so
Like that's why
boring.
we're
Right.
here. That would be kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
We're here to like experience the resistance, like the juiciness of the journey and like the hero's journey, like I can't remember who wrote that book, but it's super famous, right?
Yeah.
It's like you go through this whole wheel of experience, of the hero, like you set off because there's a calling of your soul, right? And then you go and then you
Hmm.
meet the mentor. I can't remember all the steps, but anyway, it's great if you
Right.
ever want to read
Yeah.
it. And then,
Yeah.
you hit the low point, you meet the resistance, like the I want to say enemy, but that's not the right word. Like the some sort of perpetrator, right? And then there's
Hmm.
this whole like cycle that you go through where then you bring all this wisdom back to the top and then you can go through a hero's journey in like an hour or like a day or you can be in a 10-year one. You can have a multiple ones going at the same time,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's just resistance is ultimately something that I mean, it creates so much juiciness and so much, it creates an opportunity for learning too about yourself to go even deeper within yourself through the resistance. So
Hmm.
it's never a bad thing inherently. It's
Right.
only, I would say, I mean, I really wouldn't label it good or bad, but it only really stops people in their tracks if they just allow it to run the show forever. And
Hmm.
those are you can know this about people because you and I have talked about this before. Those are the people that will tell you they're going to do something 150 times, and you're so sick of hearing that they're going to do it that you almost want to say, don't tell me until you've done it. I really
Yeah. I
do
don't want
not
to hear
want to
it
hear
again.
about
Right.
how you're going to do that thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Like if they've got a dream and all they do is talk about it and you've been listening to it for years, everybody's got somebody in their life, right? Everybody has somebody in their life who does this.
Yeah.
And you just get to the point where you're like, enough, enough. Like, and likely it's because you're actually doing things, right? Like you do the things you say you do. Maybe not always. We all get stuck sometimes, right? But you're aware that they're never going to do it as long as they keep complaining about it and talking about it. Stop talking about it and do it. And I do feel like the energy now for 2025 going into 2026 is huge for that. It is bringing this energy of finally do the thing. And we've done so much work. And I love that you said too, and I wanted to make sure we clarify too. It's like they'll get a session from me, right? And if they've never had an energy healing or, or a past life thing, if they've never had anything before, they'll come and I try to tell them, I try to make them aware, hey, you may feel a little off for a few days because these things are coming through. But I'll have people come and, oh, I don't want to do that again because I didn't feel good after. Like, yeah, like that's the point. Like that's when you say, that's what you celebrate, honestly, because that's when you know you did something. When you're feeling, and it's not fun, and I get it. And Angie and I are not out to make people feel uncomfortable. We don't want people to not feel good, but it's all what you have to work through. It's all what's coming through. And like you said, when you can just understand that it's part of resistance has a very important role in our lives. If you can understand that this is resistance working its way through your body, then you can surrender to it and allow it. And it's a lot less upsetting. It's a lot, and you can work through, and you can spend this time. You get to tune into your body. Then we talk about self care all the time, and you get to tune into your body then and say, okay, so I'm healing this thing, and maybe I can take a few days and really listen to my body, and take some baths, and take it easy, and go for walks, and maybe take better care of myself. It's all part of the process, and resistance brings awareness that is so vital to the journey. And when we get stuck, then we're like we blame things, like we were talking about my hand, right? Like I'm definitely at the age, I'm in menopause. I'm working my way through menopause, and so many of the things that I've experienced, they'll just chalk it up to menopause. And Angie and I are like, no, no, but like, okay, that's great. And like I said, I'm doing the things, I'm taking supplements, I'm trying different things to ease symptoms as they work through me. But I'm also not accepting that as a pat answer. That is not my whole world. Oh, well, it's just menopause. I guess I just have to deal with it. No. Guess what? My body is telling me, and my emotions are telling me it's something deeper that I can go in and heal, because I've been determined from day one. And I started perimenopause probably 3, 4 years ago. So I am coming to the end where I'm coming out the other side of it. But I pledged even then that it was not going to be this horribly disruptive and devastating process, because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a beautiful journey from mother to crone, from one archetype to the next, from in the raising kids and having children phase into being the wise woman of the village, right? Like that's the ancient kind of journey of it. And so I was determined to make sure that I didn't fall into that mentality that, oh, well, this is just going to suck because it's menopause. I have never accepted that reasoning. And so when I get a symptom, I go, oh, okay, like I'm going to deal with the symptoms for sure. But at the same time, go in and go, okay, well, what could be going on the emotional level? And like you even said, though, we don't necessarily have to know past lives. We don't really even have to know what it is all the time. If we just tune into the body and go, okay, just let this flow through, and I'll feel the emotions that I need to feel, and I'll feel the physical symptoms that I need to feel. And you can do, I highly recommend, holistic ways to ease symptoms, absolutely, like detox baths and things like that. But at the same time, we have to understand that when things are working through us and when we accept that that's what's going on, that sometimes those things get amped up, and we really, it's a challenge sometimes to go, okay, this is a good thing, because we want to immediately go, well, this isn't fair, and I'm not going to do that anymore because it felt bad. But it felt bad because you were letting it go finally. I hope that doesn't scare anybody, but I was like, I just wanted to clarify too. It's like we get people all the time who are like, but I didn't feel good after. Yeah, yeah, like that's part of it's part of the sandwich of life. Like we gotta, we gotta take all the things that are not our favorites with all the things that are favorites. And I think, for me personally, I've definitely gotten to a place where when I feel something coming to process through, in a lot of ways, I go, all right, let's do this.
You
Is going to be
do.
delicious. Let's
You
do
are
this.
like
Like,
that.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful place to be when you can really just accept the whole human experience. Right. And I would say, even just in the last year, I've really accepted and surrendered to and started to see the miracle in being human. Whereas, when we get on the spiritual journey, a lot of times we want to just go out and, oh, I'm just going to go to the ether and I'm just going to be all love and light and I'm not going to be in my human experience. And that is denying the one thing that you came here to do. We want
Yeah.
to experience the human life and what it means to be human. And that includes all the stuff that we have labeled bad. So if we can take
Absolutely.
the label off, then you can really, really have a fulfilling experience in this life.
Yeah. I want to circle back and speak to what you were talking about sometimes when clients, and I call it a healing crisis, when
Yes,
you
I've heard
receive
that
some
term.
sort of a treatment, and it can be anything. I mean, this can happen even with Western medicine. I know it's happened to me. Sometimes I've started antibiotics and then taken a step back and gotten worse because it's like everything tries to release from your body at once. And the same thing happens, I'm not saying it's the same as medicine. I'm just saying the same thing can happen with energy. And so if there's something that's being released from your body that's not congruent with the current energies that you're bringing in, that you're receiving through healing, then they
Mm,
can sort of, and this can happen more early on as you're more advanced in receiving energy healing. The healing crises are few and far between.
yes. Yeah.
What Wendy's speaking to is more people that are newer to the process of energy healing and haven't ever experienced yet a healing
Right.
crisis, which is just that so much is detoxing from your body at once. And that can, and when we say detox, I mean, you can detox emotional things, you can detox and we know about physical detoxes, right? A lot of people do physical detoxes, drinking a tea or fasting or whatever.
Hmm.
And you can have a mental detox, right? That could be like removing yourself from negative thoughts, right? Or like watching TV, watching negative things on TV. Like it can be anything. So you can, in any of those ways, experience a detox if you're going through an energetic healing and you're not used to it. As you move along in receiving energetic energy healing, that doesn't happen as often. I
Absolutely.
mean, it can happen, but you're very more, excuse me, you're much more aware of what's happening. And it just doesn't happen as much because there isn't as much there to be lifted
Right.
up, kind of if you think of it as like a glass of water. I always love this analogy. And then there's like some mud at the bottom, and then you have some sort of energy healing, and it's like you put a lid on that jar of water and you shook the whole thing up, and then all this stuff is trying to come up to release the mud that was all at the bottom, right? But as you're doing your healing work, there's less and less mud. Layers of mud have been released, and so there isn't as much to come up. So that's something that does happen to people early on. I remember the first time it happened to me. I want to speak to this
Hmm.
actually. It's so funny the way you said it because I know I said the same thing to my practitioner. And I was 26, and this was when I was first getting into receiving energy healing. Now, a lot of people go through this where they receive for a long time, healers will receive for a long time before they decide that they also want to learn their own
Yeah.
modalities, right?
Yeah.
And so I started when I was 25 or 26, maybe 25. And I went to acupuncture because I was having, and I talk about it in my book, I had a genetic kidney disease. So I went to an acupuncturist and she did her thing. We did a super long beginning session as you do with those acupuncture sessions. And I went into every symptom that I had was so exaggerated. And I remember sending her, this is back in the day of email, like that was how you communicated with people. I sent her this email like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. And I'm having all of this. And then she basically explained what we've come to know, which is, well, sometimes your symptoms can be exaggerated just at first. And then, as you get more, your body gets more used to having your energy be in alignment, then
Hmm.
over time, things start to shift in the direction where you
Hmm.
want them to be. So it is something that, does happen. And then some people will step away, not realizing that that is a piece of the journey. But also, like I said earlier, that can be the piece of the journey in any type of healing modality. So
Yep.
just in my case and point of antibiotics. So, of course, we're not saying that we're here to cure, treat, diagnose any diseases or illnesses.
No.
Please, please,
No.
please receive
Don't come at us.
professional advice. But just know that that is a piece of energy healing, and it can happen in therapy. You can start therapy and feel worse. You can start anything. You can start a routine of vitamins, but because your body starts detoxing, because it finally has what it needs, it doesn't need to hold on to a bunch of other junk. You can feel worse at first. So that's just
Hmm.
part of the journey. I love that you said it though, but it does create resistance in our minds sometimes because we can think, oh no, I probably shouldn't do that thing. The universe is telling me. I can't tell you how many. Okay, there's been times where I've signed up for a course or like a program or a coaching program, and then, and I remember in particular an in-person one, I'm trying to get there. I have no gas. Suddenly something on my car's not working, my tires, and it's like all this resistance in me. This is real. Like we can create physical resistance because we don't want to go and do the thing that's our next level. That's going to really catapult us into the next level. Crazy.
Hmm. Oh, yep, I absolutely agree. And I think it's important too to note that I do feel like the emotional, when you are purging an emotional core, right? Like that's you're getting down to the nitty gritty. You're getting down to what started kind of a trauma. That is going to that's kind of the challenge, right? Because we can purge physically. Like I feel like we're kind of pros as humans purging physically. Like people understand that, when they get sick, they just have to take it easy or whatever. And it's a mindset that we've gotten used to, but we've also gotten used to, and we're coming out of it now, right? But especially for like our generation, And we're kind of on either end of the Gen X generation, right? As we were raised to not show emotion at all. And so now that we're coming into this time where that's just not feasible in the energy, we're not being allowed to suppress emotions anymore. And so having to dive into the core wounds of the things that happened at any age, right, has been, I think, the biggest challenge for us lately, and will be a challenge as but we're balancing it all out. And so, and I say this all the time too, everything has to process through the physical body. Emotions get stuck and create dis-ease and create disharmony and misalignment in the body, and that can create long-term things if you never address it. And for a lot of people, not only do we not address it, but we'll add to it over time. Like you were saying, oh well, you just, if you dated somebody, like let's say you fell in love with somebody as even a teenager and then got hurt, you could carry that on through your whole life. And then what you're doing is calling in the same kind of person who hurt you. So, and I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying that your energy field, because you have not healed that and have held onto it, like it's, and it becomes part of us, right? Like what's become kind of the it's almost like a, not virtue signaling, but it's almost like a status where we wear our pain as our armor, right? Oh, well, it's part of who I am. The energy is not allowing that anymore. It is time to heal the pain and take the armor off because we don't need it. The only thing that is allowing us to be hurt is ourselves at this point. But you can carry all this all the way through your whole life. And up until very recently, I would say 20, 30 years ago, the collective as a whole, that's what we were doing. We were just dying with all this trauma, and all this pain and not healing any of it. And so now we're being asked as a humanity, as a collective, we're all being asked to look at that and heal it, to make not only individual, like, we want to step into the next role, right? The next person that we can become. We want to grow and evolve, but this is so much bigger than just an individual now. Like this is, as each individual does that and heals our heart and heals our emotional wounds, that's emanating out of us and we are healing the whole collective. And so that's what's going on right now. If anybody was confused about what's going on, but your only job is to do that for yourself. But we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it, like the 100th monkey has happened. As far as I'm concerned, I felt that shift. I felt that shift early last year, I think I want to say, is I felt that shift like all of a sudden, oh, okay, the wave is now coming through, right? And everybody is going to be given the opportunity. We don't like to say forced, right? But everyone is going to be given the beautiful opportunity to now heal the deep things. And I always tell my clients too, it's like when we can build something up in our minds, and not to diminish what anybody's been through, but if we hold on to it and put it in a cage deep inside of us, we build it up over decades. And when we locked up maybe an angry puppy, now it's a dragon, right? Like we see it as this big monster that will destroy us if we let it out, but we're the ones who put it in the cage in the first place. And so nothing in your energy is more powerful than you are. And it's all just an aspect of you that you're holding on to for whatever reason, for comfort, for fear, out of fear or whatever. And it's time to open. And I kind of see too that cages have been flung open, whether we wanted them to or not, because as a collective, we're ready to face it. That doesn't mean it's going to be super duper easy, but it does mean we can do it. We're absolutely ready to do it. And like you were saying too earlier, it's like everybody knows somebody, reach out for help. Don't try to do this all by yourself, especially when you're tackling a deep emotional wound. Everyone, it used to be that the people who do what we do was like that weird great aunt that you'd see every 5 years at the family reunion. And now everybody knows somebody who does Reiki, who does past life regression, who does any kind of beautiful energy, we're multidimensional quantum healing. Everybody knows those words now.
Yeah,
You
I
just
love
can't
my weird
throw,
aunt.
yeah. Right? Yeah, me too. I am now the weird aunt, so I get to be the weird aunt for my nephews. But yeah, so that's my rant. That's my rant on that. But yeah, it's exciting. Like it's very exciting to see what's going on and to know that you and I at least are intentionally, taking on this challenge. We're accepting our mission. It's mission possible. It's not impossible, and we've accepted it, and we're moving forward with it. And then to see other people, coming along and doing it, people you didn't think would, right? Like people you were like, oh, well, maybe they won't. And then all of a sudden they are. Like I've encountered like cousins I haven't seen in a long time and find out they're Reiki masters now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to talk, right? Like
Yeah,
that you
that's
just
so cool.
don't think about. So it's
Hmm.
beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to witness. But it comes down to the topic of this video, which is what are we resisting? And I do think too, as long as we have a physical body, we will have an ego, because the ego's job technically is to make sure we're taking care of the physical body essentially and other things. But the ego like is supposed to be, I call it the logistics commander. Having a military background, that made sense to me. And so I make sure I remind my ego all the time, this is no, you're not the driver of the bus. You're not the pilot. You're the logistics person in the back, right? Making sure that everything's running smoothly in the physical sense. And so that ego is learning. We're relearning how to operate and how to embrace the whole experience of being human and not just the good stuff. And trying to avoid the bad stuff, right, at all costs. That's resistance.
Yeah. Exactly. To accept all of it as part of the beautiful journey. And then I
Mm-hmm.
loved what you said because I think just to speak to the collective experience that we're in, the whole evolution of humanity is to let ourselves lead with soul versus ego. And ego has been in charge
Mm-hmm.
for so long. Go back if you're interested in what we're talking about right now. Watch our video on ego death. It's absolutely hilarious, by the way,
That was the
and
most
very,
fun one.
very informative about ego and the protections that ego puts in place. And ego ultimately is what creates the resistance because ego has everything to do with belief systems and the stories that we've told ourselves are part of a
Mm-hmm.
belief system. So
And
definitely
ego
check that
holds
out
on.
in tandem
Yeah.
with this. I feel like they do go really
Yeah.
well together. So, and if you find yourself in resistance, please reach out to one of us. This is the work that we do. This is how we help people to get back on their path of soul. That's the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
You really want to be the highest expression of yourself, the walking, talking embodiment of soul.
Yeah. The god and goddess. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're not sitting up here saying that we have conquered it all and mastered it all and we have no resistance. No, that's not what we're trying to say. But we can recognize it now and really allow it to process. And we get stuck too, and that's just part of the human experience. But I think for a lot of us, we always say you only have to be one step ahead of somebody to turn around and help them. And so, we've been through the ringer. We really have. And we like to say, well, the divine feminine in general, we like to say that we have been climbing through the 7 levels of hell for the last 20 years. More longer for some of us, but collectively as a divine feminine, at least 10, right? At least 10, 15 years. And we are climbing out the other side of it now. And so, if you feel like you're in kind of that turmoil, then reach out to us or somebody that somebody. If you're listening to us and somebody keeps popping into your brain like, oh well, that friend of mine, then possibly that's your higher version telling you, yes, that's who you need to reach out to. That's who can help you. When we commit, this is one thing that I learned too, and when you commit to each next role, to each next story, right? When you commit to being on the journey, when you say, okay, yes, I want to continue to evolve and change and ascend, and I want to be the best version of me, then the universe will provide everything you need. It'll bring you the teachers, it'll bring you the mentors, it'll bring you the lessons, it'll bring you the tests when you declare that you've learned something. It'll be like, oh, okay, well, here's the final test. It'll bring you everything you need to keep moving forward.
So true.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I feel like we covered it well. Is there anything that we need to add?
No, I feel like in a nutshell, if you're feeling any kind of dis, just not being aligned with the life that you want, then likely there's resistance there. And again, being in resistance is to be human, but we can look at it and open the floodgates and allow it to flow and just have a much better experience here. We aren't meant to resist tooth and nail, is what we're trying to say. We aren't meant to resist to the point where we get sick and die and not experience our best lives. That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my wrap up.
I love that. Yeah, I would say my wrap up would be if you're experiencing any sort of stuckness in your life where you just feel stuck around something, maybe you've gone around and around in circles on the same thing, a repeating cycle, always having the
Mhm.
same outcome on something, not receiving, like you said, the life that you desire, not being able to
Right.
create it. There's probably some form of resistance playing out in
Yeah.
your
If you're in
experience.
Groundhog Day, right? Like if you're living
Yes.
Groundhog Day and you feel like you're not, every day is the same and there's nothing new. And all of us crave the new. We crave, it's so funny, we crave change. And then we resist it because it's scary.
Yep.
But then
We
we crave
do.
it. So
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, so that's our 2 cents on the role of resistance. Yeah.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, we will end it there, and everything will be in the description box below, so you can check out all of our services. And if this resonates, please reach out to one of us for support if this is something that you would like support
Mm.
around. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Mhm.
Bye, Goddess.